KK Court dismisses application over State Assembly dissolution. Finance Act amendment to strengthen national creative industry. Hello and good afternoon. I'm Mohana Priya. Welcome to Updates at Noon. The Kota Kinabalu High Court today dismissed a suit against the Sabah Legislative Assembly dissolution by former Sabah Chief Minister Tan Sri Musa Aman and 32 assemblymen. In dismissing the application for leave, Judicial Commissioner Leonard David Shim said that the Sabah Yang di-Pertua has discretionary powers to dissolve the State Assembly. The courts found the Yang di-Pertua's decision to dissolve the State Assembly non-justifiable. According to State Attorney General Brendan Keith So, Judicial Commissioner Leonard took great care in delivering the grounds for judgment and said the first and second respondent acted within the state constitution. He added there was nothing to suggest there was a breach in making the decision. The Ministry of Communications and Multimedia, together with the National Film Development Corporation, FINAS, representatives of the Attorney General's Office and industry stakeholders yesterday agreed to amend the FINAS Act 1981 Act 244. Minister of Communications and Multimedia Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah said two main points were agreed upon following yesterday's first round of talks. He said the first point was the workflow for the amendment process, involving policy determination, engagement with the stakeholders, including the government, industry, civil society, academics and members of parliament, as well as comparisons with relevant laws in other countries. Secondly, it was agreed that the drafting of the bill would involve several main points, which includes the position of social media users in producing material for sharing on the platform, improvement of existing rules, and the provision of a new definition to the existing definition in Act 244. Datuk Saifuddin said the second round of discussions will be held in the first week of September to fine-tune details discussed yesterday. The supply of essential goods is adequate and able to accommodate domestic need. The Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs Ministry, KPD and HEP, made this assurance after its daily survey of the supplies of 12 goods at 720 business premises nationwide. In a statement, Senior Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said the ministry had checked on 506 retailers, 184 wholesalers and 30 manufacturers. Enforcement officers from KPD and HEP had also conducted inspections on 992 premises on the practice of SOP at the workplace and found that 980 of them had complied with the SOP set. 11 of the premises were issued advice, while the other one was given a stern warning for failure to comply with the SOP. Langkawi District Police say the first screening of a Frenchman who was spotted wearing a pink wristband at the Langkawi International Airport, LIA, yesterday showed that he was COVID-19 negative. Its Chief Superintendent Muhammad Iqbal Ibrahim said the 64-year-old man had undergone a COVID-19 test at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport upon arrival from Doha, Qatar in the morning. In a statement, Superintendent Muhammad Iqbal said the French national arrived at 8:25 a.m. and was screened by the Health Ministry staff at KLIA, and the result was COVID-19 negative. Following the negative result, the man was allowed to proceed to Langkawi and undergo self-quarantine in his house. Superintendent Muhammad Iqbal said the Health Ministry staff at KLIA also instructed him to go to the Kedah National Crisis Preparedness and Response Centre on the 1st of September before undergoing a second swab test on 2nd September. He said police and staff of the Langkawi District Health Office would keep an eye on the man at his residence to ensure that he complied with his quarantine order. A 64-year-old man inadvertently drove his car off the third floor of a car park of an apartment Melo in Bandar Baru Sentul, killing him on the spot. It is believed that the man had stepped on the accelerator and crashed onto a wall before falling 3 floors down. Kuala Lumpur Fire and Rescue Department Operations Centre (PGOKL) through a statement said his department received a distress call at 6:18 p.m. yesterday. Following that, Senior Operations Officer Hafizan Hassan said a team of 1 fire engine and 1 emergency medical rescue services (EMRS) unit with 9 personnel were immediately dispatched to the scene of the accident. The victim, however, was officially declared dead upon arrival at the Kuala Lumpur hospital. His body has been handed over to the police for further investigations. Welcome back. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Religious Affairs, Dr. Zulkifli Mohammad Al-Bakri, says mosques in the federal territories need to be enlivened and turned into social community centres as part of efforts to unite and strengthen the Ummah. If the program is successful, it may even be extended to other states.
Kelainan yang dibuat pada hari ini adalah apabila kita juga dapat melancarkan program yang dipanggil pengimarahan masjid. Julung-julung kalinya yang kalau sesuai kami akan bincang dengan negeri-negeri untuk sama-sama kita memperkasakan pelan pengimarahan masjid.
Datuk Dr. Zulkifli said this after officiating the federal territory level celebration of Ma'al Hijrah 1422 in the capital yesterday. During the event, Dr. Fauzi Deraman was awarded the Tokoh Ma'al Hijrah. The Slim State seat by-election entered its 6th day yesterday, with the main candidates involved claiming a smooth run towards winning for the respective parties. They also vowed to be more and more vigorous and try to get closer to the people as they try to fish for votes. For Barisan National's Mohammad Zaidi Aziz, apart from intensifying campaign, he also vowed to make as many house-to-house visits as possible. His task is made easier given that he's a local and a known personality in the constituency.
Pagi kita bangun awal. So saya memang di ayah saya memang pesan, kalau kita nak siap ni bangun awal pagi and then mandi. So mandi itu dia akan kita pergi kesegaran pada kita lah. So kalau kita bangun pagi sampai sembahyang subuh, lepas tu tidur balik, kita akan lemau lah.
As for independent candidate Amir Kushairi Mohammad Tanusi, he said he was satisfied with his campaign trail so far, despite the limitations, adding that he was also satisfied with the media coverage.
Dah mula masukkan kami punya kempen ke arah Gear 3 dan respon yang diberikan oleh para pengundi kepada kami juga sangat positif dan mereka telah menyuarakan apa-apa isu tempatan yang mereka rasakan dan ingin ambil peluang atas peluang yang diberikan oleh para wartawan setakat ini memberi coverage dan dapat didengar oleh seluruh masyarakat Malaysia di seluruh tanah air terutamanya.
Meanwhile, MCA President Datuk Seri Dr. Wee Ka Siong said he was happy to see the good cooperation and teamwork among all parties within the BN coalition. He added that the MCA machinery had been consistent in providing any assistance needed to help in achieving victory during the election.
Kita tidak boleh complacent. Kita tak boleh take things for granted. Kita kena bekerja keras untuk memastikan kemenangan bilik kita menjelang 29 Ogos ini.
Speaking after visiting the reserve land owned by Perbadanan Asset Keretapi in Slim River, Datuk Sri Dr. Wee, who is also Transport Minister, said MCA's focus is on garnering votes from Chinese voters in Slim River, especially in the Kampong Baru area.
Kepercayaan kepada Tuhan,
kesetiaan kepada raja dan negara,
keluhuran perlembagaan,
kedaulatan undang-undang,
kesopanan dan kesusilaan.
Still ahead, US demands a restoration of UN sanctions against Iran. The United States on Thursday formally began the process of activating a controversial mechanism aimed at reimposing sanctions on Iran, a contested move that widens a rift with its European allies and threatens the nuclear deal with Tehran. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo submitted a letter to the President of the UN Security Council notifying him of Iran's significant non-compliance with the terms of the 2015 historic accord. The letter, delivered personally to Indonesia's UN ambassador, who currently holds the Council's rotating presidency in New York, triggered the beginning of a disputed procedure called a snapback. The procedure, never used before, comes after the US suffered a humiliating defeat at the Security Council last week when it failed to muster support for a resolution to extend a conventional arms embargo on Iran. The snapback aims to restore all international sanctions against Iran that were lifted as part of the 2015 nuclear agreement with Tehran in exchange for it agreeing not to develop nuclear weapons. Experts say the snapback threatens to plunge the Security Council into crisis and raise questions about the legitimacy of its resolutions. Mali's new military junta said Thursday it would put in place a transitional government as its West African neighbours said they would dispatch envoys to help secure the immediate return of constitutional order and called for its ousted president to be restored to office. Rebel soldiers seized power on Tuesday, detaining President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, Prime Minister Boubou Cissé and other officials in a fresh setback for the country battling chronic instability. Junta spokesman Ismail Wage said they are going to set in place a transitional council with a transitional president who is going to be either military or civilian, adding that the transition will be the shortest possible. Calling itself the National Committee for the Salvation of the People under the leadership of a colonel named Assimi Goïta, the junta vowed to stage elections with a reasonable time and respect all past agreements. It also urged citizens to return to normal life and warned against acts of vandalism after some buildings were torched. Markets were open and Malians went about their business as usual. The junta said that the country's land and air borders would reopen on Friday. Still reeling from a deadly pot blast that ravaged their Beirut homes and businesses, Lebanese wearily braced themselves for a new COVID-19 lockdown. Now, Lebanon is to partially close down for 2 weeks from Friday to stem a string of record daily infection rates that have brought the number of COVID-19 cases to 10,952, including 113 deaths. 55-year-old Roxanne Murkazal said she supports the decision, especially after the massive blast at Beirut's port on 14th August. Authorities fear Lebanon's fragile health sector would struggle to cope with a further spike in COVID-19 cases, especially after some hospitals near the port were damaged in the explosion. They have said the new lockdown measures, which include a nighttime curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., will not affect the cleanup or aid effort in areas ravaged by the blast. The stay-at-home order from Friday is only the latest such decision after a months-long lockdown from mid-March. The King of Morocco, Mohammed VI, expressed concern over a recent uptick in COVID-19 infections, calling on citizens to be more vigilant to avoid reconfinement in the North African country. Moroccan authorities have slapped tight controls on movement in Casablanca and Marrakesh following a spike in COVID-19 cases. Several districts of the two cities were to be sealed off and opening hours shortened for restaurants, coffee houses, businesses and public parks. Partial lockdowns were ordered Tuesday in Rabat and the port city of Tangiers, with armoured vehicles deployed on the streets and police manning checkpoints. COVID-19 infections have been on the rise since the start of August and now exceeds 1,000 cases per day in the country of 35 million. Thursday's tally was 1,325 cases and 32 deaths, the latter up from 29 on Wednesday. Morocco has confirmed a total of 47,500 cases of novel coronavirus, including 775 deaths. Health Minister Khalid Talib, who has come under fire on social media, acknowledges the sector needs another 62,000 paramedics and 30,000 medical staff. A series of massive fires in northern and central California forced more evacuations as they quickly spread Thursday, sending plumes of smoke over the San Francisco area and dangerously affecting air quality. The blazes, most of which were touched by a rash of lightning strikes earlier in the week, are being fed by a grueling heat wave afflicting the state. Evacuation orders were expanded in several counties overnight as the flames devoured homes, forced the shutdown of roads and heavily damaged California's oldest state park. Authorities said the fires had consumed nearly 350,000 acres in the central and northern part of the state, including in the wine regions of Sonoma and Napa, which are still recovering from deadly, devastating fires in recent years. One of the largest groupings of fires, known as the LNU lighting complex, grew to 131,000 acres by Thursday and was 0% contained. California fire officials said the many blazes of the LNU lightning complex had begun to merge together to create a massive inferno, adding it had already destroyed 105 homes and structures and is threatening more than 30,000 other buildings. United States forecasters said Hurricane Genevieve weakened on Wednesday to a Category 1 storm off Mexico's Baja California peninsula after bringing rain and high waves to the country's northwest coast. Mexican authorities said 2 people, including a lifeguard, drowned on the resort of Los Cabos after a teenager ignored warning flags and was swept away. The Miami-based National Hurricane Center said the storm, which turned into a Category 4 on Tuesday, was expected to skirt Baja California without making landfall. Genevieve's maximum sustained winds has eased to 150 kilometers per hour, it said, downgrading it to the weakest of 5 categories in the Saffir-Simpson scale. But the center warned that strong winds, heavy rains and life-threatening flooding were still a danger. It said the storm, located about 170 kilometers from Baja California's southern tip, was expected to pass just west of the peninsula while gradually weakening. Coming up in sports, Inter ready to face Europa League specialist Sevilla in final. Stay with us. National Moto2 rider Hafiz Shahrin Abdullah will not be taking part in this weekend's Austrian Grand Prix as he is still recuperating from the injury sustained during the Austrian GP at the Red Bull Ring last weekend. The rider has been declared unfit for the Austrian GP. According to Indy Aspar team's latest tweet, its Moto E rider Spaniard Alejandro Medina will replace Hafiz Shahrin and teams up with his fellow countryman Aaron Canet for this weekend's race at the same circuit. For Hafiz Shahrin, he has decided to skip this weekend's race as he has not fully recovered from the crash at the Austrian GP, but vowed to make a return at the San Marino and Rimini GP at the Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli in Italy on 13th and 20th September. In last weekend's race, Moto2 Championship leader Enia Bastiani was reported to have lost control in turn 1 before dashing for the safety barrier, leaving his bike in the middle of the track. Hafiz Shahrin, who was speeding towards the turn, was unable to avoid the Italian's bike and crashed onto it, and his machine was seen shattering to pieces in the air. The 26-year-old rider is currently in 16th spot in Moto2 World Championship standings with 17 points after 5 races. Inter Milan's coach Antonio Conte has warned his players that the team's progress to a first European final in a decade will not be cherished unless they beat Sevilla to win the Europa League on Friday. The Italian giants have not won any silverware for 9 years, but have made big strides in Conte's first season in charge to close to within 1 point of perennial champions Juventus at the top of Serie A and sweep aside Getafe, Bayer Leverkusen and Shakhtar Donetsk since the Europa League's return earlier this month. Conte won the Champions League with Juventus as a player but had more experience on the losing end in major finals, losing 2 more Champions League finals and at the 1994 World Cup and Euro 2000 with Italy.
Dobbiamo essere orgogliosi del fatto di aver raggiunto una finale dopo 10 anni per un club prestigioso come l'Inter. Al tempo stesso dobbiamo sapere, come dico sempre, che la storia la scrive poi chi vince.
Sevilla are the most successful team in the tournament's history, winning all 5 of their UEFA Cup or Europa League finals. However, their coach, Julen Lopetegui, said Sevilla's 5 titles are irrelevant to Friday's results.
El Inter es un equipo muy completo, un equipo con grandísimos jugadores y que tiene una manera de jugar muy concreta, como todos los equipos de Conte, y que realmente es capaz de atacar mucho y es capaz de tener la capacidad de que no se le generen ocasiones. Bueno, lógicamente esa habla de la dificultad del partido y tendremos que ser un equipo mañana muy completo en todos los aspectos.
This is the first European meeting between Sevilla and Inter Milan, with Antonio Conte and Julen Lopetegui are both managing in their first major European final. Strict COVID-19 measures appear to be taking their toll on Chinese Super League footballers, with one saying his head was spinning in the claustrophobic bubble, and they still have 6 weeks to go. Chinese football introduced harsh rules when it launched the CSL season in biosecure bubbles after a 5-month delay because of COVID-19, which emerged in Wuhan last year. The 16 teams disappeared into the 2 sealed-off hotels, one in Suzhou and the other in Dalian, a month ago, and will not leave until the end of September. Apart from the hotels, stars such as Oscar, Marko Antarnovic and Marwan Fellaini see only stadiums, where no fans are allowed, and training pitches. They cannot meet their families. Coaches, support staff, referees and even the hotel workers must also stay in the blue zone away from the outside world. Everyone is tested for COVID-19 once a week. The restrictive environment, coupled with the physical exertion of playing 2 matches a week in temperatures that have surpassed 35 degrees Celsius, is proving difficult for some. On the eve of the season, the Chinese Football Association admitted it was concerned about the players' mental well-being, especially being away from their families for so long. Other sports have created their own cocoons, but Chinese football's is particularly demanding. World number 1 Novak Djokovic says he nearly skipped the US Open but plans to play the Grand Slam event despite COVID-19 concerns, in part to chase tennis history. Djokovic, a 17-time Grand Slam singles champion, told the New York Times that trying to catch Roger Federer's men's record of 20 Slam crowns was a major factor in his decision to play the Flushing Meadows fortnight that begins 31st August. The 33-year-old Serbian has won 5 of the past 7 men's singles slam crowns, but came to the New York hard courts only after assurances from European officials that players returning from the US Open would not face a long quarantine before upcoming European events such as the French Open. Djokovic, who has topped the world rankings for 282 weeks, could overtake Federer's record of 310 weeks at number 1 by March, and told the Times that is a major goal as well. Having Djokovic chase a 4th US Open crown adds some prestige to a slam that lacks many of the sport's biggest stars. Federer, 39, is injured, and Spain's Rafael Nadal, 34, is absent, focusing on the upcoming clay season and a potential 13th crown on the Paris red clay. And that's it from us this afternoon. In our top story today, KK Court dismisses application over State Assembly dissolution. News at 10 comes on this evening on My Freeview's Berita RTM News channel. I'm Mohana Priya. Thanks for watching.